I was drawn to all the wrong things. I liked to drink. I was lazy. I didn't have a god. Politics, ideas, ideals. I was settled into nothingness, a kind of non-being, and I accepted it. I didn't make for an interesting person. I didn't want to be interesting. It was too hard. What I really wanted was only a soft, hazy space to live in and to be left alone. On the other hand, when I got drunk, I screamed, went crazy, got all out of hand. One kind of behavior didn't fit the other. I didn't care. We all ask ourselves at some point, why am I here? That one simple question is at the core of the entire history of philosophy, science, and all the existential thoughts that humans have pondered over the ages. In this vast universe, with billions of people coming and going, we can't help but wonder, what purpose do we have? Are we really as significant as we think, or are we just one small part of an endless chain of existence? Science has given us countless explanations about the world around us. It tells us about the Big Bang, evolution, and how things work. But when it comes to finding the deeper meaning of life, science often leaves us with more questions than answers. Religion, on the other hand, once offered a sense of meaning and purpose, but today many people struggle with it, especially given the conflicting beliefs of different religions. This is where nihilism comes in, which Friedrich introduced as a concept, a void that could never be filled. The term nihilism comes from the Latin word nihil, which means nothing. Nihilism is the philosophical view that life is inherently meaningless and that we are not as special as we often think. According to nihilism, our existence doesn't carry any intrinsic value or purpose. We are simply the result of random chaos, a product of the Big Bang. The belief in moral values, religions, and philosophies is just our way of trying to feel important. In reality, nihilism suggests that we are not important at all. We live, we die, and then we are forgotten. The universe will keep going without us. We are just a small part of a much larger, indifferent cosmos. As Cormac McCarthy put it, the point is, there ain't no point. To nihilists, human beings aren't the supreme beings we like to think we are. Our existence doesn't have any particular significance, and in the grand scheme of things, we are nothing but a tiny speck in an unimaginably large universe. We live in a reality that seems significant to us only because we are in it, but that doesn't mean it actually matters. Joseph Heller captured this feeling perfectly when he said, "Man was matter, that was Snowden's secret. Drop him out a window and he'll fall. Set fire to him and he'll burn. Bury him and he'll rot, like other kinds of garbage. The spirit gone, man is garbage. That was Snowden's secret. Ripeness was all." The idea of nihilism began to spread in the early 19th century, thanks to Friedrich Jacobi, who used it to criticize transcendental idealism. Later, it gained popularity through Ivan Turgenev's novel Fathers and Sons, 1862, where a character named Bazarov promotes a belief system of total negation, denying the value of everything. In Russia, nihilism took on a political meaning as it became associated with revolutionary movements between the 1860s and 1917 that rejected the authority of the state, the church, and even the family. The anarchist leader Mikhail Bakunin famously said, "Let us put our trust in the eternal spirit which destroys and annihilates only because it is the unsearchable and eternally creative source of all life. The passion for destruction is also a creative passion." This movement pushed for a society based purely on reason and materialism and individual freedom as the ultimate goal. Nihilists rejected anything spiritual, including God, and saw traditional structures like religion and state authority as enemies of human freedom. Over time, though, nihilism in Russia became associated with destruction, anarchy, and chaos, to the point where being called a nihilist meant you were likely part of a secret, radical group promoting terrorism and assassination. Friedrich Nietzsche later took up the concept of nihilism with his famous declaration, "God is dead," which appeared in his book, The Gay Science. When Nietzsche said, "God is dead," he wasn't speaking literally. Instead, he was talking about a major cultural shift in Western society. He noticed that, over time, traditional religious values were fading away, and with them went the structure that had given people meaning and purpose. Religion had once served as the foundation for everything: our morals, our worldview, our sense of purpose. But now, in the modern era, science, secularism, and reason had begun to take over. People no longer found their purpose in a divine order. This shift left Nietzsche uneasy, even though he was critical of religion himself. He saw the danger of what was replacing religion: a moral and existential void. Without God or the structure religion provided, he worried that humanity could lose its sense of purpose and fall into despair. For Nietzsche, nihilism was a bridge, a transition from the old ways to a new way of being. He believed humans are undetermined animals, capable of becoming more than they are. The goal, he argued, was to transform into the Übermensch, or overhuman, a higher version of ourselves that goes beyond the limitations of traditional morality. Ironically, Nietzsche believed that Christianity carried within it the seeds of its own destruction. It emphasized truth as a virtue, and that very pursuit of truth eventually led people to reject faith. Let's talk about some forms of nihilism. Existential nihilism is probably the one that gets brought up the most when people think about nihilism. It's got some similarities to the 19th and 20th century school of existentialism, but make no mistake, they're still quite different. Both existential nihilism and existentialism reject religion and other authoritarian forces that used to shape how we lived. But here's the difference. Existential nihilists look at the world without any moral code holding us in place and conclude that life is essentially meaningless and pointless. It's a gloomy outlook, honestly. By contrast, existentialists have a more hopeful spin on things. They believe that we, as individuals, can find our own meaningful path through life's absurdity as long as we're brave enough to look for it. Cosmic nihilism. Now that's one of the more extreme theories of nihilism. This view looks up at the vastness of the universe, arguing that its immense, unfathomable nature is evidence of just how tiny and insignificant we are. Cosmic nihilists believe that the universe is completely indifferent to us. It doesn't care about our lives, our choices, or our struggles. To them, that indifference is proof that nothing we do really matters at all. Why bother believing in anything or anyone when the cosmos itself doesn't care? Some cosmic nihilists take it even further. They argue that the things we hold onto, like love, family, freedom, happiness, are nothing but distractions, comforting lies to keep us from facing the reality that we're just waiting to die. Ethical nihilism. This form of nihilism focuses on morality. And ethical nihilists argue that there's no such thing as objective right or wrong. Morality, they say, is entirely subjective. This view gets split into three subcategories. Amoralism is the total rejection of moral principles. Basically, morals don't matter at all. Then there's egoism, which says that an individual should only care about themselves and their own interests. Lastly, we have moral subjectivism. This is the idea that moral judgments are up to the individual. They get to decide what's right or wrong for themselves, and it shouldn't be dictated by outside forces like religion or government. Even if their ideas don't make sense to anyone else, it's still their choice. Epistemological nihilism is concerned with knowledge, specifically what knowledge is and whether we can truly know anything. Epistemological nihilists argue that what we think of as knowledge is just a construct, based on someone else's perspective rather than any absolute fact. If you had to sum up their philosophy, it would be something like, we can't know. They say nothing is really known at all, and that we should take a skeptical approach to all the supposed truths around us, questioning everything to see if it actually has any real meaning. Political nihilism is all about rejecting the structures that try to control how we live: politics, religion, social institutions, you name it. Political nihilists are suspicious of any authority that tries to dictate our lives. To them, all these institutions are inherently corrupt and have their own agendas, so it's best to remain skeptical about their motives and question their legitimacy. It's a kind of call to tear down all those pre-existing institutions that think they have a right to tell us how we should live. If I had to put nihilism into words, I'd use a line from William Shakespeare. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. That's really what nihilism is about. This idea that when you strip it all away, life itself doesn't inherently mean anything. It's harsh, it's blunt, but for those who follow these philosophies, it's the undeniable truth.